guys, it's Ty and welcome back to my channel. So I am going to be doing kind of like a mild spoiler discussion review today. And I kind of say like a mild spoiler because I am going to touch on some things and kind of explain some things, but I don't plan on going on like too much fine detail. So I know that some people don't want to be spoiled for anything, so I just wanted to throw that out there and be considerate. But I do plan on really kind of doing like a discussion, so we'll see where this leads us and where this will take us today. But I will be talking about Sex Cult Nun by Faith Jones. I'm actually going to leave that right there because I don't feel like holding that the entire time. But if you don't know, this is actually a nonfiction memoir by the author, and she is recounting her time in the cult, the Children of God. And this, I believe, is like somewhat of a well-known cult. I had heard a few things about it. I did not really know a lot of things about it before going into this book. And I still haven't looked up a lot of things about it after reading it. I just know about it after the things that I've read after reading this, and I'm not impressed by this cult, because that's exactly what it is, a cult. And I wanted to pick this book up because I am interested in all things cults, because I just am always fascinated with what exactly draws people into these things and what keeps them there and what it is that these leaders are telling these people to make them do whatever it is that they want them to do. And I just want to know, so that if someone tries to tell me those things, I go far, far away. So I'm just always so intrigued with that. So that was like a big reason why I wanted to pick this up. And I mean, this delivered on that, because this was a wild ride. I will say that this had a lot of content warnings. So be cautious if you're going to pick that up. Some of those would include sexual assault, rape, child abuse, physical abuse, prostitution, and probably a whole long list of other things that I am not able to think of off the top of my head. So if you are triggered by any of those things that I have just mentioned, I would be very cautious before going into this, because the very first, I want to say third, touches on everything that I just mentioned. And I mean, the author does not hold back in this graphic when she describes a lot of the things that happened to her when she was growing up. So I would definitely be cautious if any of that bothers you before you pick this up. But basically, in a nutshell, what this story is about Faith growing up in the Children of God. And it starts off when she is 4 years old, and she is overseas with her family. That's where she was born. And I want to say they were in like Hong Kong. And how the family, they call it the family, and how the family is actually set up is in this group. They like to call themselves like a religious movement, but we all know them as a cult. But in this religious movement, these people are allowed to have like multiple wives. So in her particular family, in Faith's family, her father actually has 2 wives. So her birth mother is Mother Ruthie. And she also has Mother Esther. So it's Faith, and I think she has like, at the time she was born, she has like 4 or 5 other siblings. And they actually are on the run at the beginning of the story, because a lot of people don't like this group, and a lot of people are trying to get this group stopped. So they are actually on the run, and they end up in China, and they go on this property, which they later named the farm. They kind of like build it up. And in this religious movement, they have these homes, they call them homes, where you can kind of, as you're like going from like on your different missions, you can stay at different homes with different families. So they built the farm. And so she is recounting her life, and primarily she is growing up on the farm. And so at the first third of the book, I think she's between like the ages of like 4 to 10. And so she's there with her father, her two mothers, and her siblings. And so she's just kind of recounting her life, and we're kind of learning about the different rules of the family. And so we find out that, you know, they're not allowed to go to the doctor. So if something's wrong with anyone, they kind of have to figure it out. They have to kind of come up with their own remedies. They have to just basically get over it. They can't go to the doctor. They're not allowed to have education past the 6th grade, so they can't go to school. They have to do basically like homeschooling, so they have to learn things from the Bible. They get these like these comics that are sent to them, and then the adults have to read these like Mo letters. And the main person that's over the children of God is actually Faith's grandfather. So it's her biological grandfather. And he writes these Mo letters, which are supposed to be like these prophecies. So he's able to predict what's going to happen. So he's supposed to be predicting like the rapture, and he knows when the Antichrist is coming. News to him, the Antichrist still hasn't came yet. But so they get these like Mo letters that come out, and they're supposed to be able to study those and like these like little booklets. But basically they're not allowed to have anything above a 6th grade education, because when they go out to witness, which is basically when you go out to witness, you're basically recruiting people into the family. You don't need more than a 6th grade education to do that, which, I mean, I guess you're not wrong for that, but so yeah, they don't have them go over a 6th grade education. And also, they are very open when it comes to sex. We find out very early in the story that within the family, they are very open with how they talk about sex. Even in front of the young children, even in front of Faith when she's like 4. They have sex in front of these kids. They have sex around these kids. They openly talk about sex. They even try to engage in sexual acts with these children. So everything is really open. It's too open. It's to the point where it's illegal with how open everything is, especially around these children. Also, the grandfather has introduced this thing called FFing, which is called Flirty Fishing. So basically what that means is that these women can go out and have sex with a man, and by doing that, they are trying to witness or get the man to join the family. And if the man does not want to join the family, then the man can then just offer up a donation. Now, to me, that sounds like a form of prostitution. And to the police, that sounds like prostitution to them as well. So they, like I said, the family, they call that FFing. And this becomes very popular. The women tend to do this a lot. Faith's own mother Ruthie, does this a lot. And she ends up having her own like kind of like permanent fish. That's what they call them. The men, when they have a man that they go out and have sex with on a regular basis, they call them their fish. And this becomes a normal practice within the family. So they call it's a term that's used a lot in this book, FFing. So yeah, so that becomes a thing. And then the grandfather, this is a lovely man, as you can see. He ends up also coming up with this thing where God told him one day that he needed to start videotaping these women dancing kind of in the nude. I don't really remember why God told him to do that, but God told him to do that. And that also meant that the little young girls had to do that as well. So that also meant that little Faithy here had to dance in her little undie pants for her grandfather while her father was recording her doing this. Yeah. Yeah, because God told him to. And what my first point that I want to bring up is that I like how with these like religious cults, and not even just in like religious cults, but in like everyday life. I love how people like to find scriptures in the Bible and kind of like chop and screw them and flip them and make them sound or make them apply to whatever it is that they are trying to do, no matter if whatever it is they are trying to do is wrong. And that happens a lot within this family. This grandfather is able to pick out all kinds of scriptures in the Bible, and he is able to justify every single thing that they do within the family with a Bible scripture. It's a skill, to be honest. And I ended up tabbing so much in this book because I was just like, wow. Even though I don't believe that's what God meant when he said that, it's a skill that you were able to chop and screw that to fit the narrative that you wanted it to fit. So that was a big thing. So this is what Faith Jones was exposed to at a young age. And so the first half of the book, not the first half, I would say like the first third of the book, is her detailing all of this that's going on. So she's seeing her mom leave the house all the time out here effing. She's seeing her parents and other adults coming in and out of the house having sex all the time. Sometimes it has been mentioned that she's even in the same bed as these people as they're having sex. She has even been kissed by adult men at times because they're just allowed to do that. So she has been exposed to all of this at a young age. So can't even get into how wrong that is. So that is what the first half of this book is about. So then we get into the second half of the book where she's getting a little older and she's getting uncomfortable with what's going on, as she should be. And we are also finding out that a lot of the older girls are also starting to be a little uncomfortable with this because a lot of them are getting of age and a lot of these nasty men are wanting to have sex with these young girls, and they're starting to feel uncomfortable. Not only are they starting to feel uncomfortable, but the police, the law, the government is starting to realize that this is a cult. There's prostitution going on, child abuse. It's a lot of stuff that's going on within this cult that shouldn't be going on. And they're on to these people. So now the grandfather and the people that he's working with have to come up with this rule that the adults can no longer have sex with the young adult girls. That's a shame that has to be a rule that grown men can't have sex with teenage girls. Shouldn't that be a rule already? The funny thing with that is, though, a lot of them are overseas. So a majority of this book is actually overseas, and I believe a lot of this is overseas because they thought that they were going to get away with this because the legal age of consent to have sex in some places is lower. But anyways, they had to change that because the law was after them in a lot of places, and a lot of the girls were uncomfortable. Back to Faith. So we're seeing her grow up, and she's starting to talk about how she has had a lot of encounters with a lot of these older men that have been coming in and out of the homes. Like I said, you have a lot of these people who are going on these missions to go out and recruit people into their family. They have had a lot of different people come and stay with them. So she's had a few different uncomfortable encounters with these men. And a lot of the men, you know, they call these people like Uncle so-and-so or Auntie so-and-so. So she's had some weird encounters with her uncles. And so she's talking about that a lot. And she's starting to realize that something's not right, but she doesn't really know exactly what's not right or why she's feeling uncomfortable. But because she has grown up in this, she just can't really pinpoint why she feels so uncomfortable. We also learned that for the first time ever, she reads her first book because Faith is actually really smart, even though that she is not able to learn beyond a 6th grade education. She is able to pick up and learn things really quickly. She reads her first story and realizes that she loves to read and learn. And so that's its own thing that comes into play a little bit later. So we're just following her as she is starting to kind of come into her own a little bit. She's getting older. She's starting to realize something's not quite right. And she's also kind of starting to rebel a little bit. And at a certain point, she actually takes a trip with her mother, because at a certain point, her father gets sent on his own little mission, and she gets to go to the US for the first time. She gets to go to a public school for the first time and actually gets to see what it is like to be in a school setting, finds out that she loves it, and finds out that the US is great. She is experiencing things she's never seen before, a TV. It's funny when she describes that they have dishwashers. She's been over there doing chores and having to hand wash dishes, and she's like, well, what? There's something that actually does this for us. I don't have to keep washing dishes every day for like 50 people that live in our house. There's a dishwasher that does this for us. So she's experiencing everything in the US for the first time. Then, you know, she realizes something over there that is really eye-opening, not only for her, but as for us, the reader, because what this cult wants everybody to think is that they are so family oriented. They even have family in their name. You know, this cult is supposed to be there for you. You know, you guys are you want everybody to be together and be as one and be so godly. But when Faith and her mother and some of her siblings go over to the US and they are trying to find places to stay, because like I said, they're supposed to be going from home to home, none of these people from the family are helping them. They end up having to get help from Faith's parents, who low-key don't really want to help them because they don't really support them being in this cult. And so Faith starts to realize, like, hey, these people that are supposed to be our family aren't the ones that's helping us. It's our actual blood family that's helping us. The people who aren't even in this cult that are helping us. That's pretty eye-opening. And I feel like when you read stories like this, or you hear people's experiences like this isn't the first time you hear stuff like this. This isn't the first time that this happens. When people get out of situations like this, I feel like this is the first thing that you hear. It's always the people who was not in the situation that you're in. Those are the people that help you, not the people that you were in it with. Those aren't the ones that are there for you. It's always the people who are outside of it that are the ones that are helping you, not the ones that are supposed to be in it to win it with you. No, they're nowhere to be found. They're not in there. They're not in there holding your hand and holding you down like they're supposed to be. Y'all are supposed to be in there holding hands, singing Kumbaya, but no. No, they're not helping you. It's the ones that are out here on the outside looking in that have your back. Imagine that. Funny how that works. Anyways, so then Faith finds her way back overseas, and she actually ends up in her teenage phase, and she starts to rebel a little bit and gets in trouble, and she's also moving from home to home. She gets splits up from her parents, and she ends up again really starting to learn that something is not right. She's having trouble with her romantic relationships and not really understanding why she's not able to connect with anybody. These people that she's staying with, like the different homes that she's going to, they are trying to get her like paired off with somebody and trying to get her to have kids and trying to get her married off. And she's just like not attracted to anybody, and she doesn't understand why. And she's just like going through it. Eventually, she just makes a decision that she does not want to be in the family anymore. She wants to go back to the US for good, and she wants to go to college and get her life on track. And so the last half of the book is her trying to get herself together and make her way back to the US, go to college, and make something of herself. And she has a hard time. She ends up going through some more bad sexual encounters. There is a tough lesson when it comes to rape. I'm just gonna leave that there. She has some tough conversations she has with her parents in regards to her trying to get out of the family. I'm gonna say that her mother is a trip. Her mother drove me up a wall in this book with the things that she says to Faith, how she acted throughout this entire story. I will say that it's hard at times to like be lenient with people in situations like this when it comes to like cults, because you feel sorry for people like Faith who were like born into something like this and they don't know any better. Like Faith doesn't know any better. When we get this story, she's 4 years old and this is all she knows. So she doesn't know right from wrong. She doesn't know that all the stuff that they were dealing with, like the effing and, you know, being videotaped by her father while she's dang near naked, that's wrong. She doesn't know. She's just now learning that that's wrong. But her mother, on the other hand, I believe her mother was like dang near an adult. She was like in her late teens, early 20s. Like she's grown at this point. You know that what you're doing is wrong. I don't care if they talked you into this. I don't care if they brainwashed you at some point. At some point, you knew that what you were doing is wrong. And the fact that your kids are in this and you're raising them and you're telling them that this stuff is okay and you're watching your daughter struggle through this and you are telling her when she is trying to come to you and say, hey, this is happening to me and something's not right, and you're like, no, it's fine, deal with it. I can't. Her mother, nope, I just can't. And her father was not any better. He was really abusive to them as children. He was beating them with this stick thing that was called the rod of God. I felt bad for them. I did. And I can't imagine what was going on in any of these other families. If this is what was going on in her family, I can't imagine what was going on in these other families. I can't. But anyways, so she was having some tough conversations with her parents in regards to her decision to want to leave the family. And, you know, they weren't very supportive at first. So the last half of this book was us watching her get her life on track. Overall, I ended up rating this book a 3 stars. It is hard for me to rate people's like memoirs and their stories because it's their story. But I mean, overall, like the first 2/3 of this book, even though it was hard, especially that first third of the book when she was like going into details about what was going on, I enjoyed learning about the cult itself and like the inner workings, because like I said, and like I was stressed, I like learning about cults and just seeing what it is that makes these people stay, what it is, like just the inner workings of cults. Like I enjoy that. So I like that part of the book. I like how Faith was real raw with how she was telling her story. She didn't hold anything back. She didn't sugarcoat anything. What happened to her, and she told it like it was. I also liked how it felt like a story in the beginning. So the first 2/3 read like a story to me. Where this kind of fell off was kind of the writing for me. So the first 2/3 felt like a story, and then towards the end, it kind of felt like a textbook. The story element left for me, and it just felt very like textbooky. There's a very long epilogue, and that really felt textbook style to me. And it was really hard to get through, and it drags, and I literally could have done without the textbook. It was just really her about like changing her life, and I can't even really recall because I kind of like started skimming at that point. I was like, oh my God, just, okay, I got it. We get you. So yeah. But other than that, say it was good. It was a tough one. It was hard to get through at parts. It made me angry, but I was happy that she was able to turn her life around. And some other good stuff happened to her. I'm not gonna spoil anything. So I will say again, with the few content warnings that I gave you at the beginning, if that is something that you are able to get through, then I would suggest you pick this up. If that is something that you're not able to get through, then you might want to hold off on this. But I enjoyed it for the most part. I do think this is going to be one of those reads that will bring up a lot of good conversations. I think this will have a lot of conversations in regards to religion, especially depending on where you are at in your religion. I'm not somebody that, I don't consider myself like a really religious person. Like, I do believe in God. I go to church from time to time. I do read the Bible. I'm not somebody that's out here throwing Bible scriptures at people, but I mean, I know a scripture or two, but I think this will definitely be one of those where people could go down a rabbit hole with this cult. Like I said, especially I think this too will bring up a lot of conversations with, depending on people's knowledge about the cult before they go into this story. I did not have a lot of knowledge going into this book about the children of God, besides like the name and like little bits and pieces of information. So I was able just to take what this author said as like fact. Now, if you are going into this and you like know a lot about this cult and you have heard a lot about the children of God, you might have a lot more to say about this. Me, I can only go off of what she just told me. So take that for what it is. But that is actually all that I have for you guys. And I'm actually interested to hear you guys' thoughts if you have read this book. If you have not, please let me know if you plan on picking it up. And I will see you guys next time. Bye.